Welcome back to Sprague River Homestead. So today what we're going to talk about is the Champagne d'Argent rabbit. So the Champagne d'Argent rabbit is another French breed. They are a commercial type rabbit, not that you can tell because he's not going to pose up. They are literally Champagne d'Argent just means the silver from Champagne. It's from an area of France. So that's where they're from. They are actually one of the 3 Argent breeds. Which in the United States basically means, being an Argent breed means that they carry what's called a Silvery Gene, which we'll talk about in a minute. There are 3 of them. There are the Champagne d'Argent, which is the largest. You've got an Argent Brune, which is similar in color, except where these guys are black, they're brown. And then you've got a Cream d'Argent, which is the smallest, which are basically an orange rabbit with the silver in color on the underside. Now the Champagne d'Argent is a good sized rabbit. Does are going to run between 9.5 to 12 pounds. Your bucks are going to be 9 to 11. So they are on the bigger side. They tend to have nice big litters. Most of mine ran anywhere from 8 to 10 when we were still actively breeding. Of course, as they get older, the litter sizes get smaller. What makes these guys really unique, or any of the Argent breeds really unique, is, like I was saying, something called the Silvery Gene. So when these guys are born, they are jet black. The Argent Brunes are going to be solid brown. Your Cream d'Argents are going to be a solid orange color. When they hit, and it kind of varies from line to line, most of mine started anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Those solid black babies will start getting silvery. And at first when you see it, you think they're getting white spots. But if you watch it long enough, it usually will start near the legs. You'll get a lot near the heads, particularly around the eyes. You may start seeing some spotting in the ears. And then by the time they're 12 weeks, they are mostly colored in like this. Now what you want in a Champagne d'Argent, and what the standard actually calls for, is to have almost a bluish cast from a distance. And what causes that is the gray undercolor. It's supposed to be almost a slate blue. Max here is a little bit older, so his color is not as good as it once was. And then these long black guard hairs. You should still have the dark points at the ears, the butterfly at the nose. Usually you'll still have some eye color, and then you may have dark along the feet. So when they're full grown, by 6 months for sure, they should look something like this. Now you see a lot of variance. Here in the Pacific Northwest, for some reason they like them really, really dark. I've been other places, like down in California, they prefer them really, really light, where the undercolor is almost white. This actually isn't correct, but in all things with rabbit breeding, you do see trends in different areas, and that's one thing I've noticed when I've gone into California, is the lightness of their champagnes versus the ones that we have up here. The standard does call, like I said, for a more slate undercolor with the black guard hairs. So even though Max is a little older here, he does still show pretty good color. So being a commercial type rabbit means that they're going to be posed very similar to your New Zealand's. I'll see if Max wants to participate in that a little bit here. There we go. So he actually peaks a little early. I'd like to see his high point a little bit more towards the back feet. But he has pretty good shoulders, pretty good top line. He's nice and wide. This, again, we're talking meat rabbits. So you want nice and wide through here. This is where the meat is, that and the legs. So you want really nice, well-defined, really good high point, and good muscling. One of the big faults in these guys, you'll see it a lot of times on the show tables, and I haven't shown them in a few years, but one of the things that judges are really quick to point out is flabbiness. This is a meat breed. We want tight, we want well muscled. If they're flabby, you need to probably be addressing that as to what is causing the flabbiness, whether it's overfeeding, lack of exercise, or just bad genetics. Because we want a nice firm rabbit, because these guys are going to be a meat breed. So when you're talking about them, it's 55 points as type alone, which is common in your commercial type breeds. There's another 20 points in color alone. So there's 20 points in color, and then you've got another 15 in fur. So these guys were developed as a fur animal on top of being a meat breed. These are a real dual purpose if you're looking for an animal for pelts, which strongly suggests these guys. They make beautiful pelts when they're all done. You do need to hold them a little bit longer. And I keep telling people this when they ask me about pelt breeds. To make a nice pelt, you're going to have to wait until they get into a senior category. So with the Champagnes, technically a senior is not 9 months. but you do get some nice fur in the intermediate classes, which is your 6 to 8 months old. But you are going to have to hold them at least that long. This gives the hide time to thicken up, it gives the coat time to mature, and you're going to get the very nicest pelt you can at that point. So in terms of temperament, these guys can be all over the map. I've had some that are very sweet. Max here tends to be pretty laid back. I've had them really high strung. We are actually going to be getting out of the champagnes. I've been talking about it for a while and have decided here in the next month we're actually going to pull the trigger on getting rid of them. They are a lovely breed and a lovely animal. I don't care for them personally. My Harlequins and my Americans will come up to the cage to greet you. They're very excited at feeding time to see you. These guys just do this all the time. So it doesn't matter if they have toys. It doesn't matter, you know, if you're giving them special treats. They have this temperament all the time. Now, I've had some that were really aggressive, and that's another thing that I really don't like about them. I've had does that are really cage aggressive. That's kind of a no deal for me. I'll put up with a mother who's aggressive, you know, defending her young, but I really can't put up with a doe that's just aggressive for the sake of aggressive. I've heard of bucks being that way as well. I've not had the first-hand experience with it, but a girlfriend of mine who raised these things several years ago did have a buck who was a little on the aggressive side and ended up being cold for it. I know a lot of people will tell you, well, aggression is something that's nurture-based. It's not. We see it a lot in rabbits, and that was kind of what she was finding, is that aggressive tendency was getting passed to his offspring, and so she ended up culling him, even though he was a beautiful buck. So getting back to the meat end of things, just like your New Zealand's, these guys should reach a marketable weight at about 8 to 10 weeks. Most of mine I found at least 10 up to 12, depending on the size of the animals that you're starting with. They do have good growth rates, they do have good feed conversion rates, and they do put out a pretty nice carcass. So if you're thinking about something, especially if you're looking for a pelt type breed, I would strongly recommend that you give the champagnes a good look over. They can be kind of expensive depending on where you are. A lot of times we see very few of them actually sold, you know, just in your like Homestead classifieds type stuff. Most of what you see there is going to be your New Zealand and your New Zealand crosses. So you may have to go to an actual breeder to get these. Depending on the breeder, they may cost a fortune, they may not cost much. Now, a lot of times when I would take stuff that maybe wasn't destined for the show table, that I would feel good about offering without a pedigree to be a meat breeder, my juniors would usually start at 25 to 35 bucks. If they were going to have a pedigree with them, usually 40 and up. Good show animals are going to run anywhere from 50 and up, and if you're actually getting current breeding stock, they may go as high as 80. Show stock, however, can go much higher. I actually saw some really nice champagnes go for sale at West Coast Classic this year. I believe, if I am not incorrect, the lady got like over $700 for a trio. So they can be expensive like anything else. A good show animal to the right person that needs them desperately in their program, they may be more expensive. But for a meat breeding animal, you should be able to find at least juniors starting off somewhere over 25 bucks and up. So the only DQs and things that you want to watch out for in these guys, of course, be mindful of temperament. White nails is a no-no, as is true big white spotting. That's a no-no. And then you've just got your normal stuff. You're looking for malocclusion issues, you know, conformation problems, that sort of thing. Overall, I found these guys to be pretty hardy. The only real problems I ever had out of them is they are more prone to ear mites and fur mites than some of my other breeds. Part of that is because of the density of the ears and also the density of the coat. Fur mites love a good thick coat. And unfortunately for me, I picked some up at a show a couple of years ago, and every now and then, I don't know where the little buggers hide, but they rear their little ugly heads about every spring, and the first ones that will show up with it are generally going to be my Champagne d'Argents. So that is something to keep in mind. Otherwise, I've had no real parasite problems with them otherwise. And like I said, if you're considering a pelt breed in particular, it's really something you might want to look at. They are fun to have for the kids as far as watching the babies grow up, because every single one of them will color in differently, which is kind of fun. And like I said, they start out solid black, and then next thing you know, they're getting little silver hairs. And some of them will look like Dalmatians, like a reverse Dalmatian with the black body and all these little silver spots. So they silver in a lot of really fun ways. For me, they just aren't really the personable rabbit I want. But for people that are just doing meat rabbits, I know sometimes it's easier to do the whole culling process if they're not a real personable rabbit. So keep that in mind as well, that this standoffish kind of ho-hum temperament may be exactly what you're looking for. So that's it about the Champagne d'Argent. If you have questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. There's not a whole lot to them. Like I said, they're just a commercialized rabbit with a specialized pelt more than anything. But if you've got other questions, concerns, comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. For the people on the other videos who have repeatedly commented, "Oh, Max, he must be dead." He's not dead. He's not dead at all. He's still just as spoiled as he always has been. So that's it from Spring River Homestead. We will see you next time. Happy homesteading.